Alrighty, welcome to Worldwide Stock Car Chat on Zoom, recording number 120. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Today we've got Mike and Luff and Paul and Dwan and Don and John and George and Garth and Alan and Jim and Courtney and Kev and other people. Let's talk about something other than slot cars. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about slot cars. Does anybody have any show and tell they want to show and or tell? If so, raise your virtual hand so that I make sure to call on you. And I'll try to ask for, I'll try to give you a last shot to wave your real hand. But let's get that started. John, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I've actually been kind of out of commission as of late because I injured myself, but I managed to actually get down to the workshop because some people on this chat and other people have made requests about figures. And I thought, they've asked for like a list of the figures. And I thought, I really don't know. And I started making a list. Oh my goodness. My name is John and I have a casting problem. Yeah, it's massive. So then while I was doing the list, I thought, well, I may as well work on some of the figures and, paint a little bit, do some listing. So I thought I would show you guys, if you don't mind, just some of the figures that I updated if you wanted to see them. Here, I don't know if you remember this chap. He was a motorcyclist that I kind of created and made. Of course, I made a mold of it. Got a mold and I cast him. And then, so here's what he looks like undone. And there's what he looks like all painted up.
Very nice. Oh, cool.
And it turned out really quite well.
It made such a big difference.
Oh, does it ever? And then these three guys, basically it's a monogram sort of standing figure whose arms were removed. And then I put on some other arms to give these drivers some expressions. And then I put it as gray primer. And I thought I'd finally finish them off. So there's Graham Hill. Of course, Graham always talked with his hands. And the thing I have to finish with, I don't know if you can see his goggles here, but I actually put a lens in the goggles there. I don't know if you can see that. Just kind of cool. But he turned out quite well. I did Mr. Gurney. I had to finish his goggles as well. And that's sort of he's got the sort of classic monogram driver pose there. I left his arms alone.
And he's very surprised about something.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, I'll show you why. Because I actually, there was and of course, here is, who else but Mr. Stewart talking with his hands. Again, did his goggles. And you can see, I mean, that's the expression on his face every time he's on camera or talking. So he turned out quite well as well.
Really nice work on the face and the hair, how you have all that. That's really detailed. That looks really good.
Oh, thank you. Well, it really helps starting off with some really good sculpts. These are all immense miniature heads. I'd recommend Mark Tyler's products. Now, these are, again, some guys I made from bits and bobs. That was the top of a newsman from Monogram and the bottom of, I think it's one of my daughter's figures that I just sort of slapped together. And then, again, the newsman body with the head of a helicopter pilot, believe it or not, in 1/32 scale. And then you've got three reporters. This is actually the assassin's head from Pioneer. I managed to pick up one of those. And then, yeah, I sort of popped his head off. And now he's a reporter, which can always trust him to report stuff.
It's like a homie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, his head, he's got a bit of a large noggin. He does indeed. Yeah. And then I also, from Pioneer, ended up getting a Mr. McQueen head. And this is actually one of the spectators from Monogram that I cast and took off his camera because I didn't think McQueen would be carrying a camera around, and then painted him up. And he actually turned out quite well. Because of course
you put him on the motorcycle and do the Great Escape.
Yeah, well, that's I absolutely. I've got other heads. I might actually do that. I think that's a great idea. And of course, he would always wear a dickie, even in the summer, right? It didn't matter. It was all about how you look. But yeah, he actually turned out quite well. And then again, this is to your point. Here's a bit of it would be like a press scrum. It would be, and I'm sure there would be like Graham having a discussion in quotation marks with Jackie Stewart, and then everyone else sort of listening. So that's got to go around the track somewhere. Oh, and I've also found a dog. So I thought of you, Greg. I don't know if that's what your dog looks like, but maybe we can paint your dog to match.
There we go. Yeah.
And then I also thought this is the Monogram sort of spectator guy with the hair, and I put a Fangio head on and did his head while I was. Oh, and we're back. So that's it. That's the whole share. So, but yeah, I haven't even. I'm still compiling all of my, there's tons, guys. So when I have a list, I'll post it somewhere so all you folks can pick and choose. So
what would you say your average time per figurine as far as painting it from the mold to actually customizing the paint?
oh, how long does it take? So
Yeah.
well, they actually, as long as the mold is made, I mean, the mold takes.
Well, I meant just the paint portion. So you have the.
Oh, just to paint, yeah. To be honest, I try and do them in batches, and it usually
Okay.
takes, because you do the whites of the eyes, and then the sort of inside of the mouth, and you build out. So the face takes the longest. The clothes really probably about 2 days with everything drying properly.
How many would you get done in those? If you did in a batch, how many would you get done in?
Oh, I usually 5 to 8 in a batch. There were some other figures I didn't show. Like I did a lovely little Italian lady that I thought looks really kind of cool. She'd look good by an alpha or something. So yeah, so lots of neat stuff. It's really neat to try and make different types of figures that you can't find, because finding girls in bikinis is really easy, but try and find a 45-year-old woman who's a little portly carrying a purse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
about 50 images unpainted, so I was just trying to get a.
well, it really helps to actually to put like gray primer or black primer, especially for the clothing, because then dry brushing makes the clothes really come to life, and it's really easy. It takes no time at all to do the clothes. The most of the time comes on the faces. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, and thanks again. I guess I need a token of some sort to work on my addiction.
Just keep doing it. As long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. Keep doing what you're doing. So thanks for sharing that. And Mike, you are up next, sir.
I got 2 newbies this time. I got a Carrera Aston Martin, really nice. I wish like heck that they would make some decent chassis, because their bodies are such superior, and their painting is great, but they're heavy.
Yep.
So it'll go in my group of Carrera GT cars that I've got. And unfortunately, the chips are more expensive than the cars. I mean, for $40 you can't beat it if you're going to race these, but the slotted chips are 45, and you can't get the scale extra ones at all. So, and because they had it on sale, I got.
Real quick there, if you go on eBay, there's a guy that sells just the chips, and they're a little bit cheaper than what there's some, because they're from loose cars. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You might want to check that out.
Scale extra digital chips?
No, Carrera. He talked about Carrera, right?
No,
He's talking about.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Carrera car, but Scalextric digital chips.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So then I got this one.
CC.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Those are fun cars.
Yeah. My buddy up in Chelan has one, and so I got something to race against him with this, and I'm going to try and use less magnet than he does, and we'll see how it works. That's all I got.
All right. Thanks for sharing, Mike. And next up is Don. Mr. Young, take it away.
I want to give you an update on my bushing problem that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I have got the solution to it. Basically took a pair of nylon bushings, cut them off at the bottom of the hole, and then they fit right in place, and everything works great. Don't have to do any filing. A razor saw and a little miter box gives you a good straight cut, and they work beautiful.
Awesome. Cool. Bob's your uncle. All right. Great solution there. Thanks, Don. And Dewan, you are up next, sir.
Okay, yeah. This is really not really news or old, nothing. But I haven't seen anybody talk about it on the chat. So I know that everyone's familiar with the Scalextric.
Okay, Dewan, how many did you buy of those? Come on, be honest.
Less than a dozen. But what the thing that I wanted to point out I got these about a month or so ago, but I haven't seen anybody talk about them. The add-on Robin image.
Yeah, I just ordered one off of eBay, but
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what this is. It's got eBay on it. But
the only one that I could find is from the UK.
it's the UK. They're pretty expensive.
They are very expensive.
Yeah.
After shipping, mine was after shipping and currency conversion, it was over $40 for the.
Yeah, mine's got down to $20 a piece.
Because you bought a bunch.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Shipping costs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's a lot of money for Burt Ward. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And they're so tiny too, but they're actually to scale.
Yeah.
I haven't put one in the cars yet because my hands just don't. I still can't get the image to really. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway.
Yeah, you pretty much have to turn off your virtual background.
Turn off my virtual background to get it. But anyway, so yeah, so those are on eBay. You can find them. But there's the matching Robin set, and I just want to let everybody know it's available because I haven't seen it. So,
All right, good stuff. Yeah, as soon as I get mine, and of course shipping takes a long time.
yes.
So I should be getting mine within a week or so. Hopefully by next Wednesday, I'll be able to show some pictures.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of us have seen it already in other people showing off their Robinized Batmobiles. But to me, it's almost as if Skeletric is going to re-release it with Robin at some
with
point.
Robin in the future, yeah.
Yeah, you just know it, you know, like they did all three Back to the Future cars, and they did both Mad Max cars. There's almost no way they're not going to re-release that with Robin. But
Yeah,
I can't have a Batmobile without Robin, so I had to order one.
Something tells me that the estate of Burt Ward is easier to deal with than Burt Ward.
I mean, and maybe we'll find out the backstory if they do re-release it with Robin. Maybe we'll find out.
Why I wasn't first?
But anyways, yeah, good stuff. Thanks to Juan and Tony. You got a bunch of new cars. You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you got your flattener.
Yes.
Did you try it out yet?
No, it come late this afternoon. So, got two switches on it, auto and manual.
Yeah.
You have to do it on auto. It turns itself off after 12 hours. After 30 minutes, it turns off, and you have to leave the chassis on there for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Then you got the manuals only for professional people to use because it gets hotter.
Yeah, it just keeps warming up, so you got to monitor yourself.
It's really heavy.
Yeah, man, that's a big steel plate there. Yeah, there's been some good videos on that. George did a couple of videos, right, George? And I think I've seen another one. Were you you were the one, George. Your video had the heat.
Yeah, I had a thermo. It's I forget what the hell it was called. My wife used to do solar stuff. So what it is if you leave that on auto, it'll reach a certain temperature and then it'll shut off. But if you leave it on manual, I got it up to 100, I think 72 degrees, 78. I'm sure if I left it on longer, it would probably get hotter, but it's just to not burn your house now. You got to keep it up.
And that was Celsius, right?
Yeah, no, that was degrees. It was in degrees.
Celsius or Fahrenheit?
Fahrenheit, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Fahrenheit.
That's fine. That's still pretty warm. Yeah, and you were doing it with the NSR chassis.
Yeah, I had a soft blue chassis that I just bent on purpose. This is a Porsche chassis, and I don't, somebody else on the forum tried it with like a slotted chassis, and I was like, and I kind of mentioned, maybe the type of plastic or the density is different than what NSR use, so I would really stick with NSR chassis. I mean, and do it that way.
I would tend to agree with that. Or if you know what kind of plastic the slotted chassis is, or whatever chassis you're doing, and you know what therefore, if you know what kind of plastic it is, you can research and find the temperature ranges that it becomes soft in.
And that would be the manual part. Maybe you would experiment with that. You have to experiment with everything. Always.
You got to know what you're doing before you switch it to manual.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff, Tony. Thanks for sharing. And is there any other show and tells before we move on to other topics? Go ahead and wave your real hand into the camera if you want. I'm looking. I don't see any other virtual hands or waving hands. So we will now move on to Club Corner. If you had any past, present, future, more than one person racing activity that you want to talk about, now is the time to raise your virtual hand. And I'm looking forward to hearing Jim's experience at the Electric Dreams hosted Slotted Nationals Group C race. Take it away, Jim. Ooh, presentation? Awesome. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, this is a big one. I'm going for Wayne's record. What else can I say? This is the best slot car race I've ever been to. I haven't been to a lot of slot car races, you know, high-end slot car races. It's been home racing, but I've been to a lot of high-end RC races, and this breaks the bank. My friend Ian Douglas said he's been to a lot of races. He says it's the best slot car race he's ever been to. So first of all, hats off to Marco and Maurizio for making this happen. It was just unbelievable. These are not the cars that, well, 3 cars I took. The one on the right is my race car. The one in the middle is obviously the poster car, which I dropped when I took it in to take this picture. So I've got to glue the wing back on. And the car on the left is the car that that Bob Hooley and I won the Christmas Enduro last year with. So these are all going in my museum, and the 2 signed by Maurizio. This was a competitive race, and obviously this was a big race. It's a nationals, but it wasn't about the race. It was about the people. I mean, what he did to put this on, and all the little things. You know, there was actually a sign that said electric alley as opposed to gasoline alley. We had to put outside because there's limited space indoors, but it was all there, porta potty set up, everything. Like I said, it's about the people. There's people on here that you know, and there's people on here from Austin that I know through my YouTube channel, but I finally got to meet them. You know, I was standing next to Rick Jocham, who is a relatively famous, definitely famous HO racer. The guy from Austin comes up to me, I know you. Go, you're Jim Rose. And he goes, and Rick just looks at me and goes, they know you? The details. I mean, there's nothing like this. You want to get picked up at the airport, you can get picked up at the airport. The schedule's there. And up to date, you know, this is after the 2 heats were run. So an up to date race results of the 9 heats as they were run. So you know where you stood in relation to the rest of the field. So every little detail, you know, the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. This is the one car that I saw that I got to take a picture of that. This is one of the Austin guys. And so he's running a Toyota. You can see it's got NSR tires on it. We'll get to that in a minute.
Was that a hydro dip?
Yes, it was. I asked him about there was a hydro dip. Just the thing looks amazing. It's, you know, looks great. Got the Electric Dreams logo on it, the LA Slot Car Museum, which we'll come to in a second. The Nationals right below the Toyota. So, you know, if there was the one thing they didn't have was a concourse, and he probably would have won it. So I would have given it to him. The displays. There were blue and yellow cars there.
Maurizio brought a Sunoco.
Maurizio brought the Sunoco. You can see the Ferrari in the background and the Chaparral. So the new three new cars that aren't out yet. So they were on display. Marco told me, and I have no reason to doubt him, in these 2 display cases, there is one of every car that Slotted has ever built, including, you see in the upper right, some of these special edition cars, the Marlboro liveries, but the Warsteiner liveries, different colors that were probably never imported to the United States. So, you know, just besides all the regular stuff, every car that Slotted has ever made. We got to meet Maurizio. Great guy, unbelievably friendly, outgoing. Mauricio's on the left, my friend Rick Jocham, who happens to be a pretty good racer, is on the right. We got to sit down in like a roundtable meeting with Maurizio on Friday night. It was part of the event. And he talked for a few minutes, and then we threw it open to questions. He explained all the licensing issues. That was one of the questions. So he talked for quite a bit on how licensing works. He talked on his relationship with NSR and how it started. And it was great because, you know, they're competitors, but they have a very strong mutual respect for each other. So it's just interesting to hear him talk about that. And in the getting things done portion of that, my friend Walt asked him, you know, we're running these modular gears and they have 3 shims in them, and we're running them with 4, and we really think you need 4 to make this work properly. He goes, done. The next batch will have 4 shims. The next question was, well, can you sell the shims separately? So, you can buy 1 gear and a couple extra shims. He goes, yeah, we can do that. So he was just incredibly open and receptive to ideas. And he bounced some ideas off us. What do you think about this car? What do you think about that car? And my comment to him was, I think a car that would sell extremely well and has never been done is the Datsun 510. So they're looking into that. And so just to sit down with somebody that owns the company and be able to bounce ideas back and forth and talk to him, and just, like I said, just an incredibly nice person to have a conversation with. And obviously it makes great cars.
Yeah, Maurizio is super cool. If anybody out there ever has the opportunity to go somewhere Maurizio goes, freaking go. And just say hi and shake your hand. And then he'll say, hey, how you doing? What do you race? He's like just another dude. It's awesome.
And he's not a bad racer. I worked on his car for a little bit on Thursday, and then Rick Jocham worked on his car a little bit. We got it running a little bit better based on this track. And he ran a Porsche, which was not the car of choice. But I think he finished 16th or 17th, which is not bad for basically not racing at all that week, really hanging out with people. So
15th.
Awesome.
Yeah, he said he got 15th.
15th, okay, yeah. Then another thing, Marco arranged us to be able to go to the Slot Car Museum. And the LA Slot Car Museum is right up, those of us that are on this chat, right in our wheelhouse, because it's this era that most of us are in. This is the lower level, or the one on the top right is the lower level. The mezzanine is on the upper level. That's the Interscope car and the Ronnie Peterson F1 car. So this is where you walk in. Philippe de L'Espinay was our host. And obviously I guess you would call him the curator, if that's the official title or not, but of this museum. And he showed us all the things that were in there. On the lower level is a place called the Vault. It's kind of like the Peterson Museum. They've got the Vault down below. It's got all kinds of stuff, just cataloged and everything. Most all of it just brand new parts from the 60s. And then you go up into the actual museum. And I didn't get a picture of it. I do have a video that will go up later. As you walk into the museum, you go up about 5 steps and you're greeted by this big, probably 6 foot by 10 foot video board, and it's playing the scene with Batman and Robin playing with slot cars. And then so now you get up in the museum, they got some, here's some of the cars that are quite a bit in even before my time. And this gives you kind of an overall look at what the museum. This is one wall. There's about 4 or 5 walls like this, so it's not a huge area. I would guess it's around 40 or 50 by 50, something like that. But it's just old stuff. And it's all on display like you think of slot cars, we kind of think of dingy places, slot car parlors or whatever. This is first class, like a first class museum. Some of the stuff on display is vintage race cars. The boxes on the right are all original boxes from racers from the 60s. So like, if the stories that could come out of those boxes could talk, it's just amazing. Everything's there. This is just Cox. You got the Cucarachas, you've got the Ford 121 Galaxy, the Dan Gurney car, the prototype, and then the original cars and so forth. So it's all just like this. And as you go through the museum, it's just like some of this stuff. You tell me, yeah, the Stinger or whatever. I'd forgotten about that car, but it brought back the memory. I think is that a Buzzco? I think the Little Red Wagon. And
yeah, it was the same company that brought out the Batmobile, and
yeah,
it was BZ,
yeah. So all this stuff is there, and way more than we have time to look at. Original race cars, from the 60s and so forth. Most of the stuff is 60s era, so the race cars.
It's like going back and going through a model car magazine from 1966, but for real.
Yeah. And these are the original cars. I saw this, so I took this for Dwan.
I was going to say, Dewan's got a couple of those, right?
There's a complete Revell area. I mean, you've got Revell, you've got Monogram, you've got K&B, you've got AMT, and I just didn't want to put all these in this presentation because it would just take too long. So that was the museum, and again, that was part of the weekend, and that's what made this what I consider the greatest slot car race ever. Back to the sideshow, which was the racing. This was my race car, the one that I chose. In pre-testing, my friend Rick Jocham and Walt Baines, they told me, you got to have a Jaguar. If you don't have a Jaguar, stay home, basically. And so I built a couple Jaguars, and this was my race car. And I'm not going to go into a huge, great, lengthy detail about this, but this is the car. What sets this apart from an ordinary Group C car that we've been racing, and part of it's the rule set, obviously. They don't allow ballast. You've got 2 tungsten weights there. But the biggest thing that we changed from what we'd been running in the past, because it was open wheels and tires, are the gears. We ran the modular gears on the right, which when you break them in with semi-chrome for about 20 minutes, they are whisper quiet. Car makes 0 noise going around the track. But the biggest thing was the tires. We ran the NSR 13 millimeter by 13 millimeter F1 wheel and the NSR Ultra Grip 13 millimeter wide tires. And you can see the tire on the left is the one that I used in the Enduro winning car from December. And the one thing about that is that those 13 millimeter wide wheels will not fit on any other car but the Jaguar. And that was one of the reasons why it's so dominant. I've heard a lot of people say, well, we got to get rid of it. It's the Mosler of Group C or whatever. Part of it was the rule set. You can run wider tires on the Group C, but you can't run the 13 millimeter on both sides like you can on the Jaguar. So that was part of it. I think the best Jaguar was, I think Maurizio was the best non-Jaguar at 15th.
That's what you said.
What diameter did you turn those down to? They look rather small.
Well, you look on the bottom there, we're running 25 thousandths ride height roughly. And those are 17.5 millimeters. It's very chassis dependent because these Jaguar chassis are not flat out of the package. And so you've got to work with, and everyone's a little bit different. So, but we were all right in the neighborhood of 17.5 millimeters in the rear, which gave us about a 20 to 25 thousandths ride height because the track's perfectly smooth. We can run the car as low as you want to run it. So that was the basic setup. Buy a Jaguar, buy a set of pre-mounted if you want them, NSR tires, put the weights in it, put a wood guide in it, and go racing. And it would run on that track, just build it out of the box like that. It would run 6.4 without any problem. The fast cars were running 6.1s and 6.0s.
And what teeth is on your spur there? I'm not familiar with it.
That's a 23. There is a 22 that I found at Pendle Slot, but it didn't mesh anywhere near as good as this. So there was really no gain for it. So we pretty much everybody, it was almost a spec car. I think that in the A main, every car was pretty much this identical setup. The only difference between my car,
you had to keep the 9-tooth pinion that was provided on your
yes,
on
that
your
was
motor,
that was
didn't you?
required. Yeah, the pinion was spec. It came on the motor, you couldn't change it. The only difference between my car and Rick's winning car was the guide. He used Slot Invasion, I used NSR, but the cars were basically identical. So it was almost a spec class. You just put the car together like this, and it ran great. The Nissans and some of the other cars ran really good and could approach the times of the Jaguar, but you really had to push them hard. With the Jaguar being wider and the bigger tire patch and everything else, it was like effortless to drive it around the track at speed. So that was the reason the Jaguars dominated. And quite frankly, the guys in the semi probably would have been in the semi if the Jaguar didn't exist. So the faster drivers gravitated to the Jaguar. And so that it's a, you know, the Jaguar is good. On a home track, I don't think it's going to be that great. I mean, it'll be good, but because it's so big and heavy, I think a Porsche is still going to be very competitive on a club track that I normally race on. There you go. There's the right around 20,000, 25,000 ride height. So it's slam. It's right on the ground.
Can you tell me what that is in millimeters, Jim?
I don't know.
Oh, anyone?
I know 25 in mil. Is it 1 millimeter 40 thousandths?
It's 0.635 millimeters.
Wow.
0.025 inches is 0.635 millimeters. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the day, our NorCal guys, there was a couple others. I loaned Mario Alvarado, one of my local racers, or one of the local racers I race with. He was struggling a little bit with a Nissan, so he ran my backup car and ended up finishing, I think, 16th. I think he was right behind Maurizio, 16th. So again, it was just so easy to drive. Myself, I had as good a race as I could run. I got second. Ian Douglas, also from Northern California, and Herman James from Northern California were right behind me. Ian passed Herman on the last corner of the last lap to finish third. So it's a very competitive race. Going into the last segment, I was 1 lap behind Rick and Herman was 1 lap behind me. And if I would have tried to catch Rick, because I was on a slightly faster lane, but they're really close, but he was on the easy lane. And if I would have tried to catch him and make up a lap in 5 minutes, I probably couldn't have done it. And I probably would have given up second. So I just kind of sat back and decided I'm going to run a clean heat on the gutter lane and take my second and go home.
Well done, Jim. Well done.
One of the real pleasant things is the people at Electric Dreams. She knows her stuff. I got there, I go, I got a chassis waiting for me. Yeah, check out 2 or 3 of them, see if you want see if whichever one's the flattest. So she knows her stuff and she gets you the stuff that you need. So very, very helpful. Works with Marco. And then after all is said and done, Electric Dreams was closed yesterday, and she put this poster up, and Marco said, "Well, okay." So yeah, that's the first poster she's made. All the other posters, you know, Marco is designed or whatever. So this was her poster. We're getting out of here Monday. Get rid of all these 60 people. We love them, but 5 days is enough. So that was the event. And like I said, the event was just spectacular.
Most likely it was 5 days of men is what she
Oh yeah,
She's like, I'm done.
Maurizio brought his wife along too, didn't he?
He did, yes.
Yeah, I thought I saw her there.
Yeah, she was
Yeah,
there.
I think I saw it. Yeah.
And so I just can't say enough about Maurizio. Didn't do a lot of the work on the race. That was Marco, but he obviously lended his support. And so coming over here is a big deal. So between Maurizio and Marco, the thanks just, you can't stop saying thank you because it was just an incredible event. The only person I don't want to thank is Rick Jocham because he beat me.
Well, Jim, all I have to say is good job, man. I watched the last 2. I think it was the semi and then the final at home. You did a great job. You almost pulled it off. You know, I think you did real good. Congratulations on second.
I've been racing Rick in HO for 12 years, and I beat him the first 2 times I raced him, and I can't remember the last time I beat him. So he's that good.
Yeah,
Well, I watched
the first for most.
Yeah, you've seen him at the Coral, so you know how good he is.
Well, I watched the whole thing, Jim. Well deserved, but I have to say that you also came in second on this chat because you were not as long as Wayne.
Oh man.
Well, I could have been if I put in all the pictures that I took at the museum. And like I said, I went down there for the race, but as the weekend turns out, the race was kind of secondary because the meeting people, the museum, being able to meet and actually sit. I sat next to Maurizio on the way up to the museum in the van, which it was an interesting trip with Marco driving the van. Just leave it at that. And talk to, he's an electrical engineer by trade, and so it's very interesting to talk to him. And
well, you got to tell him not to put the van where the double lines are because it's not a slot car.
What double line? He was on the shoulder.
He was on the shoulder.
Did he tell you about his time in Formula One?
It felt like it, yeah. No, he didn't.
No, he was an engineer in the Life Formula One team as well.
Oh, Maurizio was?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he didn't say that. He did say a little bit about his background. So.
Yeah, he designed an engine.
That explains things.
I forget the details though. I'll have to dig it up and see if I can post a link. But
and Marco's working on events for next year, so there's going to be even bigger and better things next year at Electric Dreams.
Even if it's the same, it'll still be something to plan for.
Yeah, and he told us about all the new cars coming out, and he told us about. Never mind.
Things he can't say.
Talk about it after the recording.
Yes, we can.
All right. So, any more Club Corner related things, or should we just open the floor to topics? I don't see anybody scrambling for Club Corner. So I will just open the floor. If you got something you want to talk about, now is the time. I'm going to see if I got anything. Oh, here's something I wanted to share.
Wait a minute. We're only 30 minutes into this. I got another hour. Never mind.
Yeah, you got plenty of time to waste. I wanted to talk about, go ahead and plug.
There was John waved his hand, sorry.
Dennis just
Dennis just raised his virtual hand.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm struggling a little. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me today?
Yes, we can
hear you, sir.
All right. Just a couple of things. Jim did a great presentation there. Very well done. There were one or two other things. Marco had a very small team behind him. He has two young other Brazilian guys who work with him. One guy's name is Lucas Bica, and he's the guy who does all the graphics and all of the magnificent videos. I mean, you guys watched it, and I've watched some of it at home. I don't think I've ever seen a slot car race as well streamed and as well covered as that. As Jim said, Kristen did a great job. The other guy that's in the store is a young man by the name of Carlos. I don't recall his last name. And then Victor Dubrowski, who's an ex-raceway owner, commercial raceway owner, and local. He did the race directing, and the first time he's done a race directing for this kind of race, although he's quite experienced at that, he did a magnificent job. There was a time during the heats where we were like nearly 20 minutes ahead of schedule. Now, I don't know when you've ever seen a slot car race that's ever ahead of schedule, but we were ahead of schedule as we worked through those 9 heats on Sunday morning. So yeah, it was really, really well done. What else was I going to say? Not much. Maurizio finished.
Tell us about the race from your own perspective.
Oh, okay, yeah. I had made my choice of car before the Jaguars were released and before anybody realized it, or just about as the Jaguars were released and long before anybody realized how they were going to work there. So I ran a Toyota 86C, which is like the Porsche, is one of the better Group C cars on that track. I also was probably about the only guy that did not run NSR wheels and tires. I had a set of slotted Formula One wheels that they used to make back in the day. I don't know if they still make. Yeah, I think they still do. They're still available anyway. I used a set of those which are 14 millimeter diameter rather than 13. And I used a set of their F22 tires on that I could cut down. The reason for the small rims is because you need to get the tire so small, and on a bigger rim you just couldn't do it because we weren't allowed to use the 1 millimeter offset pod. That might have made a difference if we could. But I ran the F22 tire. It was just a personal choice because it felt better to me in terms of the way I like to drive. And as if you could have seen, my qualifying was pretty shitty. I was nervous and I never qualify very well. But in my heat, I had a great dice with Maurizio in one of the stints in that heat. He was on red, I was on white, and which are the two outside lanes. I came off early in the heat and he got by me, and then I chased him down and I beat him on the coast after the power went off by about 6 inches in that heat. But after that, he just disappeared and I couldn't get back to him. And I had a pretty good dice with the guy who finished second in that race. And so the three of us, Maurizio, and then this fellow Robert Silva, and then me, we were the top 3 non-Jaguars in the race. And so I'm pretty happy with that. I came in 18th overall.
Yeah, I call that a win.
I was happy. I said to my wife before I left, she said, yeah, do well. I said, well, if I can qualify in the top half, I'll be happy. Because by then I knew, that I had the wrong car for the race. But I really did not feel like going through all the issues of trying to build a Jaguar at the last minute. And the other thing was too, I was still concerned about damage to the rear wheel, not being able to count laps. As it turned out, that only happened to one guy. And it happened because he was in a heat where there were 3 identical Castrol number 60 Jaguars. And he started off the heat watching the wrong car and launched his car flat out into one of the inside barriers and broke the wing off. So that was unfortunate, but that's what happened. There was possibly one of the most interesting things of the whole weekend was seeing how everybody tried to change their Castrol Jags so that they could recognize them. You know, there were any number of different colored wings and fluorescent tape and checkered tape and chevron tape and
Masking tape.
with cryptic messages written on it. Herman told me that it was a cryptic message for somebody in the in NorCal that was written on the wing of his car, but I don't know who it was or what it meant. But yeah, there was a lot of that going on. And Maritza,
in the semis, there were 10 Castrol Jaguars and my Marlboro pseudo livery and a West liveried Jaguar.
And then there was a red one painted like a Ferrari too, which was really nice, and a fluorescent green one, and a white one with some fluorescent tape on it. So there were quite a few others. The reason that Maurizio and his wife were there was they were on a vacation to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary. So they'd been in the States about 2 weeks by the time the race happened.
Did Mauricio say anything like about the Jaguar is kind of dominant, or did he just kind of go it was because of the rule set, or like I just wonder if he takes that input and it translates into his next car.
What I think it's going to translate into is one of two things. Hopefully we don't get a Mosler situation where everybody says, oh, you can race anything you like except the Mosler. Because I think there are some tracks where the Jag's not going to be as dominant as it was here. I think the very first thing that's going to level the playing field a lot will be, number one, to make the Jags run with the wheel skirts on, fitted to the body. Because that immediately brings them down to the same, across the wheels, to the same width that most of the other Group C cars are, right? And it also means that you can no longer run the 13mm wide tires. Now, secondly, whether, and I think for a slotted nationals, this may happen next time, that you are limited to using slotted parts. And so NSR wheels and tires will not be part of the equation. It will all be slotted stuff. And thirdly, eventually, probably a ground clearance rule will even up the field a little bit as well.
I like the slotted parts idea.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that NSR wheels and tires were, I mean, tires okay, but wheels, I was surprised that was allowed to begin with. But yeah, that sounds like that would make the Jaguar more competitive rather than no competition for it.
Well, and I think keep in mind the Jaguar is the real car is bigger.
The real car, so it was to scale.
It was to scale. It just turned out that it's bigger, and as a slot car, that makes a huge difference. So it wasn't like let's build a Mosler kind of thing. The car was built to scale.
Yeah. John, were you saying something?
What I was going to mention before is he was in the country for a while, and I said, "Are you going to go to Monterey next week? Because the Jaguar XJR10 is going to be run." He goes, "Oh, really? Maybe I could stay over a week." And then his wife heard that, and then
yeah, a bit of the feedback from the meeting that we had, or the discussion we had with him on Friday night, without blowing all the confidential information that we had. A lot of people have asked over the years, you're bringing out the Chaparral 2F, but years back you announced that you were going to bring out a 2G, and it's never arrived. So what's going on? And basically he said, everything's done except the body. He said, it's that easy because it basically builds on all of the mechanicals from the 2E. And so really all he has to do was the body. But he said, whether we release it or not will depend very much on how the 2F sells. So we all said, well, we'll all buy 10 of them so that you can release the 2G, so we can buy 10 of those too. So that was the story on the 2G. There was one other thing that I asked him at one stage, and that was that Slotted have always had air system wheels available for their 15.8 and 16mm sizes, but never for the 17mm. And so we asked him about that, and he said those are coming. So that's something new to look out for if you run GT3s and things like that use the big wheel. that we will be getting 17mm air system wheels from Slotted. So you won't have to be reaming out the NSR wheels anymore. And that's about all I've got for today.
Well, Pendle Slot Racing have already noticed that opportunity, and they've made their own air system 17.3 wheel. It uses an M2 grub screw instead of a 440 like the NSR, but it fits a 332 axle.
Good.
So I've noticed that one.
Yeah.
But that is good news.
Yeah. Yeah, that was about it, I think, from my end. I'm muted and on no camera today because my internet is still giving me all kinds of hassles here. So excuse me.
Well, we're glad you could make it anyways. And I thought I heard Mr. Weber or Mr. Underwood chiming in. Did you guys, either one of you, have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I just hope. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Mr. Weber, and then we'll take Mr. Underwood.
Okay. I just joined a few minutes ago, and I don't know what's been said before, but I just want to add my attaboys and congratulations and all that to Jim and his performance. Got to watch a few of the races and look like Iceman.
He did a great presentation, so you're going to want to watch this episode from the start later on.
Great.
I can't remember if we talked about this before the recording started, but I did see some of you guys on the chat on the live feed on the YouTube channel, you know, and I really did appreciate that. Thanks.
Oh, you wait till you see our invoice.
Maybe you get my check.
All right, and Mr. Underwood.
All I have.
Yeah, I've got bought a Jaguar kit and sprayed it up. I'll find a picture and hopefully post it. Greg will appreciate it, so you can imagine what colour it is. It has got a lot longer wheelbase than any of the other Group Cs, and obviously, as Stitch stated, it's a little bit wider. I think, as you know, Richo's already tested it around. He's obviously got a little test track, and chatting to him in Eindhoven, he was saying that he would suggest that it runs with the spats, but it's down to individual clubs, etc., to you know, design their own rules around it. It is a dominant kind of, you know. At the moment, there's, you know, most of the Group Cs are fairly competitive. We did a 4-hour the other day at Stanborough. There was one Jag, 4 Nissans, Porsche 956, and Toyota, I think it was, T88. You know, it may be a dominant factor. Either ban them or put spats on them. Individual clubs will decide, won't they? So, but no, it's good to see it all went successfully. You know, there's a lot of hard work, both with the people hosting it, obviously Electric Dreams and all the team there, and obviously all the racers. You know, Jim's had an excellent weekend by the sound of it. 5 days. I'm sure he's knackered and wants, you know, still recovering. But no, great show. You know, if I win the lottery, I'll hop over and have a go myself.
Quite telling, isn't it, that 2 HO racers come to 132 and they can do it straight away. It's like it's like the cars probably feel slow to those guys.
Do an HO racer?
It's like you, Wayne. You've come from HO, and you're just as quick as me. I'm probably a little bit more consistent.
John, I'm not quite as quick as you, my friend. I'm sorry, but I have to hold myself slightly below you at this point.
Well,
I've still got a few things to learn.
At the same time, you know, Rick and Jim and a lot of those other guys that came from HO were not necessarily just driving Mega Gs the whole time. They're driving, you know, gravity cars. So, you know, when I did the Quarrel last year, I was surprised at how similar, and I mentioned this at the time, that they're basically like driving an NSR. You know, they're just smaller, right? And so me transitioning to that kind of HO was a lot easier than I expected it to be. I still wasn't as good as those guys, obviously, because
Rick and I are used to T-Jets or freight cars, which and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but you have to drive them, and these cars are very similar.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Jaguars, that Mr. Underwood was talking about, how there were Jaguars. We're currently running slotted Group C in IMSA, the Analog Club, and one of the guys the other night was complaining that he couldn't run his previous Jaguar. Nobody has the newest one, but he was just running his other Jaguar around the track with the skirts on, and he was complaining that he couldn't competitively race that with the skirts on because you have to bring in the wheels a lot more, and he wanted to be able to run it with the skirts on, but he didn't because it wasn't competitive with the wheels pulled in like that.
Yeah, the Nissan would be the same. The R98, 89 would be the same if you well, we call them spats, skirts, you can call them whatever you want, but if you put the wheel covers over on the Nissan, it would be just as awkward. But I've always said Slottick Group C was the best slot car ever invented, or one of the best slot cars ever invented. You came as an inline, you put sidewinder in it, you can put an angle winder in it, you can put a light kit in, you can do an endurance race, God forbid, put a digital chip in it and do a 24-hour race with it. Yeah, and they're bloody good cars, and always have been. Fairly bulletproof, very simple. Throw it on the track, off you go, race it. Great cars.
And the best thing about the thing that I appreciate most is that the car that I'm running in Group C was a Porsche 962. I forget the specific one, but it's the blue and yellow one. Was one of their earlier models, very, very early model, and it had the old pan chassis, like the edges of the chassis went up and everything. No set screw holes for the front axle, basically none of the stuff that we've become accustomed to. But I was able to get the new universal chassis and just put on the right air thing for the front and back and stuff and match it up. And then I had all the features that these newer cars have, and all I had to do was move parts, from the old chassis to the new chassis and slap some set screws in and I was good to go. And now my old car is competitive with the new cars. I'm actually doing pretty well.
Yeah, another thing about the Jaguar too, it was kind of a perfect storm in that the size of the track, the grip of the track, and the rule set just played into the Jaguar's hands. If it's a balance of performance, Jaguar won. And so on a small track, I still think the Porsche has the shortest guide lead. The Nissan is the lightest. The Jaguar, now this new Jaguar, is the biggest. So they're all going to be different on different tracks. But if you run the wheel spats and or limit the wheel width, like in our club, we run stock wheels. So you can't put 13 millimeter wide wheels on the Jaguar. And so I think that will limit it. And it was, like I said, just kind of a perfect storm why the Jaguar was so dominant at this particular race.
Kind of points to a few little gaps in the rule set that allowed in the 13 millimeter wheel. If there'd been just a 10 millimeter max set to that would have cured
everybody was running that. You just on a Porsche or a Nissan, you ran the 10 millimeter wide F1 wheels from NSR and cut the inside of the tire off so it was flush. So you're running 11.5 millimeter wide tires on all the other cars. So it wasn't that huge of a difference, but it was a difference.
Yeah.
So you just have to cut them. You couldn't run the 13 millimeter wide. You ran the 10 millimeter wide, but it's significantly wider than a stock tire and wheel. So pretty much everybody was running that.
And like you said, they're going to do it again next year. I'm sure the rule set will change accordingly, so there's not just a one make race.
I think I think made it as big an event as it was the fact that the stream was there. I think that if any event makes the effort and does the good PR, makes the nice poster, etc., not just an announcement on a forum, get somebody in the chat, for example, to mention it, that will have added more people to the stream. There were over 100 people watching that stream on occasions. And I think any slot car race that went to the effort of multi-camera plus results screen streaming, then the event would grow in stature within the slot car community, wouldn't it?
They did a fantastic job. The other thing that I appreciated was that somebody from Electric Dreams was in the chat and answering.
Yeah, they were listening to comments and ideas. A lot of people were presenting ideas, like the overhead camera. Just some of them were kind of jokes, but they did think about that, which is nice. I think what they should do more of is more of the kind of like interviewing people that are racing, because that
it would have been. I agree. It would have been really neat.
That would bring a better connection. Hey, what's going on? Yeah. Have like somebody that's actually like the reporter of the whole thing, I would say I would want to do something like that and just say, hey, what's going on here? This is what we're doing. That would really bring a lot more people to the stream for sure, if they had somebody that would specifically do that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
George,
you
to
can
your
ask
point,
Wayne all the time.
and to your point, George, it's kind of like this chat. You finally put a face to the name, because I'm sure we've seen these people sort of online in other places, and it'd be nice to, see and see what they look like and hear what they sound like.
I keep interrupting Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I forget now what I was going to. The live stream. It just goes back to Marco doing everything right. There's a lot of slot car tracks that have live streams, and nothing against them, but some of them you just can't watch because one, the cars may be too fast, or there's no video, or the scoring monitor's not there, or whatever. You can see what's going on, but you really can't. You could actually watch this race and see what's going on when I went back and replayed it.
I couldn't take my eyes away. I was at a music festival and I couldn't hear a damn thing, but I was sat there in a deck chair with my phone in my lap and listening to the live band at the same time. That was funny.
Yeah, I think one thing they should do for sure is when the person is announcing the race, they need to plug that mic into the feed, because when you hear it on an echo, you cannot really hear anything. And it would be nice if it was in the stream where you actually have a microphone and they're saying what's going on, because that was one thing that it's hard to hear that because it echoes, because it's in a room.
That would be interesting to have a commentator, actually have a commentator doing commentating.
Yeah, we need a Murray Walker of slot car racing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen that done here in North Carolina. The North Carolina Slot Car Addicts, they did one race, and one guy was actually funny. He was actually announcing the race, and the way he was doing it was just so entertaining. And then people would, he just listen to the comments and then speak back. I think that'd be great to do something like that.
That would be great for the live feed, because we don't want that at the track, because they were asking people to be quiet because everybody wanted to concentrate because it was a big event. Yeah. And so they were trying to keep it quiet in the room, but that'd be great as on the live feed.
With you guys in California, you should hire those guys that used to do that slot car cast on YouTube. You remember that show? It was like a satire of slot car racing. Anyway,
I think also it's been a while.
It's been a while, but also Dewan, take notes for this for the Vegas Nationals.
Yeah, Dewan is taking.
Well, the other person I felt really sorry for, and it's too bad he's not here, was Frank. Oh my gosh, he had a technical problem with his car.
I think I'm gonna hide. Dewan looks like he fell asleep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I felt really sorry for Frank.
How did he do?
Well, he was doing great, and then he had a technical issue with his car, and he had to take it off the track.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
I remember
he's not here to tell us about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question about it. I noticed in the live stream that Rick didn't just win the first prize, the T-shirt and the trophy. They also presented him with a box. It looks like a pit box, and it had got slot cars in it. Can anyone expand on that for me?
Well, that was a private thing. The guy that Rick is kind of a partner in racing with, Walt Baines, and they were going back and forth. They're like two little kids going back and forth. I just turned around once and said, "How long have the two of you been married?" But Walt had a bet with Rick, because Walt's been racing like the rest of us for quite a while. He had this old, I can't remember the brand of it, but it's a slot car box, wood slot car box. And the bet was if Rick TQ'd the race and won the race, he would get the box. And so this was between Walt and Rick. It was a private thing, but they made it public after the race. And inside the box, there was a La Cucaracha. There was some of those thingies. There was about 12 or 14 slot cars from the 60s in it.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. He put his money where his mouth is, that's for sure.
Yeah. And he bought pizza for the house on Saturday too. So I mean,
oh wow, yeah, okay.
I've just, I've only known him for a few months now, but great guy, good racer. If the hard luck award was there, he qualified second, and he was actually driving Rick's car, and Rick was driving his car, so it was kind of odd. And he easily, I think, would have transferred into the main from the semis, but he had a controller issue and got about 5 laps down at the outset. You can see that on the video. It was a controller issue. He got the backup controller, and in the haste, he hooked it up backwards. So he lost about 5 or 6 laps, like right at the very beginning of the semis. So I'm sure, would have transferred into the main.
There's another guy who had a controller issue too. I think his controller went bad and he had to pull out of the race or something like that.
Somebody, I can't remember who, I remember that hearing it, and Joachim hooked up twice backwards in the practice and blew up 2 controllers, so.
Did you see the guy who raised the controller with his thumb?
Somebody was using a thumb controller?
No, he got a normal one.
It was a regular
one,
normal
but he
one.
was using his thumb?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's one guy who races with his thumb on left-handed with his thumb on a Professor Motive trigger controller.
In his right hand in his pocket. Easy jump.
Yeah.
He was a lefty too. Wow.
Yeah, he was a lefty as well. Just on the pizza thing, and that's something else that Jim didn't mention. Marco had arranged with a local pizza shop for phone-in orders on the Friday. So you could call in and they were delivering once every 45 minutes, would deliver to the store. And they created a special pizza for the weekend. It was called the Mauriziorella. And so you could order a Mauriziorella pizza, which was obviously mozzarella cheese and chicken and bacon and white sauce. It was actually bloody delicious.
It was great.
It was fantastic.
I didn't know that.
Hold on,
I had a
you
piece
mean
of that.
Yeah.
they didn't add any wintergreen to it?
No, well, not that I could tell, but I must admit,
Wintergreen.
afterwards, right? Yeah, so yeah, that was just another one of those little details that Jim was talking about. This was really good.
It must have been really good because you put bloody before it. So.
It was good.
It was bloody good, really.
I'll do the English version. It was damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George, the other guy who pulled his controller was Tim Fleener, the fellow that was driving the wrong car. And when his car crashed, he just pulled the control, and the wing came off. He just pulled his controller and walked away. But we actually did repair the car. We stuck the wing back on with a piece of magic tape, and offered him to carry on driving. But he decided that enough was enough.
Well, speaking of the wings, I'm not sure, those of you that haven't got the new Jaguar, and I don't know if any of the other cars have this, but the new Jaguar has a tear-off wing in the kit with it, tear-proof wing. And it also has the 2x6mm set screws for the front axle in the kit. It's the first one I remember seeing with definitely with the set screws. So
yeah, there are
some my set screws, and it's right there.
Nice.
So they're obviously slotted listing. I mean, you got to have 2x6 set screws if you want to race the car and set the front axle. So they put them in the kit.
Well, once John Underwood gets his all finished, I'll buy that off. Well, okay, no, I'll wait until I see the pictures before I make an offer.
And the Castrol livery, it's great.
Oh, I know. It's nothing wrong with Castrol. All right, any more talking or questions about the slotted nationals? Okay, I'm gonna do a quick show and tell. Gotta click the right button for it. I mentioned these in the past. These are Ed Bianchi's HO Race Pro's torque wrenches, 3 different sizes, 0.5, 0.35, 0.28. Pretty sure those are millimeters. No, 0.5. Anywho, inches. Oh yeah, okay. So you forget, we're missing the O. Okay, so 0.028, 0.035, and 0.050 inches, and they are measured with torque limits. I believe he based the 0.035, which is the slotted size, on the slotted torque wrench, and then he basically scaled up or down the other two based on, the size of the wrench being scaled up or down. So 0.050 obviously has a higher torque limit than 0.035, which has a higher torque limit than 0.028. But you can also just grab the handle here. So if you want to use the torque, you grab back here where the numbers are, and you can see the ratchet there that, the spring activates the torque, and then the ratchet comes into play, or just hold the wrench up here and drive them in. They are currently for sale. So I will put a link in the description and in the chat for anybody. I have a set of these. They work great. I showed them to the guys at the club. They liked them too. Forewarned, the main issue is that because these are straight regular Allen keys, they're a little bit loose in the wrench. So basically what you want to do is kind of hold the wrench in your hand and steady the Allen key with your finger to get it where it needs to go. And then once you've got it installed into the screw, then you can just turn it normally. But it's a little wobbly because it's a 3D print, so it's not permanently fixed into the handle. And that's one of the other reasons he went with this design, is because it's a standard Allen wrench. If you round off the tip somehow, just grind it down and you've got a new fresh tip. And then eventually, if something terrible happens, you can always replace the Allen key itself as well. So they're great tools. If you need some torque wrenches, go ahead and check those out. And he basically will take orders via PayPal, or go to the forum link and send him a private message or whatever. And I said, I believe he also mentioned that he's planning on doing some other sizes. The current options don't work on Revo slot, which is one of the ones I wanted to get a torque wrench for. And I think he's going to look into that and add that option as well. And you can buy them onesies, twosies, or get a whole set. And they're very reasonably priced.
That leads me to a question. What's the hell going on with the US Postal Service? It is so expensive. I want a number of little $4, $3 items from the States that I can only find over there. And they're going to cost me $30+ to ship.
So shipping out of the US or into the US?
Out of
the US.
Out of the US, we don't get any breaks, but stuff coming into the US, there's a law that we get tons of breaks. That's why China sends stuff over here for like 32 cents a packet, where it costs us $8 to send over there.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Look into the last mile. It's this really convoluted BS way that countries share expenses for delivery of things, and basically we get screwed in that, shipping stuff out to other countries.
Yeah.
So
Listen,
yeah.
I have to tell you,
something I only noticed this week.
What were you gonna say, Courtney?
I sent those proxy cars to England, $15, I think, and I'm in Tennessee, and they got there in like 5, maybe 6 days. But now that was 2 months ago, so it may have changed. But $30 is
for one car, or
for 2 cars.
2 cars in one package for $15.
Well, that's very interesting, that, because I contacted a supplier and they told me the prices of their parts, and they were like $4 a pair. And I was like, I'll put my name on some of them then, please. How much to ship to the UK? And he said, well, I'm sorry, but it's over $30 for me to ship to the UK.
What kind of parts were these?
What kind?
Well, they were interesting. It's relevant to Garth's 3D printed wheels. It was the aluminium hubs for the 3D printed wheels that Garth's been designing.
Oh, okay, so to be fair, Courtney did not pay $15 for fully insured express shipping.
No doubt. Yeah.
$15 is what you pay for slow boat, no coverage at all.
That's right.
Which I go for these days, because even if you get full insurance coverage, the red tape to get that any kind of money back on that is absolutely not worth the time it takes to get it done. Right? When I had an issue where something disappeared in the shipping, and I started looking into it, and I'm like, not only is there all these qualifications that you got to meet before you can even bother putting in the first piece of paperwork, but then there's just a huge rigmarole, and then maybe you get back the value of that you declared on the thing, but if you declare a high value, then the person who's importing it has to pay an import fee. So
that's right.
It's like the only way to get something overseas out of the US to another country at a reasonable cost is to have it not covered at all as far as insurance, not pay for express shipping of any kind, and have a very low declared value, which negates the purpose of insuring it anyways, because otherwise the person who bought it from you has got to pay even more just to receive it.
That's right.
So probably the person that and I know who you're talking about, he didn't want to just send something in the mail and have it potentially disappear with no reason.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure it got there in a timely manner. and that costs money. That costs a lot of money.
Listen, everything is a gamble.
Yeah.
So U.S. Post Office, gamble. They're toy
Yeah, they
cars.
are. Big
Gamble.
time. That's why a lot of these like Slot Car Corner, they put that notice on there because people were getting mad at Steve Sawtell. And it's out of Steve Sawtell's hand once he sends it to the Postal Service. It's up to those guys to, deliver it. So he put a footnote, and stuff that I've ordered, he just puts UPS because he got so tired of it. And he just kind of didn't want to deal with the U.S. Postal Service.
To be fair, statistically speaking, they are rock solid. But anytime you hear about something going wrong, it's damn Postal Service. But they're doing 10-fold, 100-fold more packages than any of the other.
Yeah, it's the complaints that he doesn't want to deal with because
Exactly.
certain people, that's what it is. So
Now, just in case you're wondering, I ordered some commercial wheels from Russia. I haven't seen those yet. That's
How
a
long
gamble.
ago was that?
A month and a half.
Put it in perspective, the U.S. Post Office could probably lose 1 million pieces of mail a day and still be running at 99% efficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
You could lose all of my bills and I would not complain.
You still have to pay them.
Right. Don't we wish?
All right. Anybody got any other stock car related topics to bring up? Otherwise, we can just hit the stop button and chit chat. All righty. We're going to end this one early. Oh, did I hear somebody?
Yeah, you want to end early? Go ahead. I was just going to add something. Let me see if I can.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I messaged Dennis about. Oh, hello. What do you guys do for like ready to run clips on the chassis? Like, I was looking on eBay and for like one pair of those clips was like $6 a piece. I thought that's insane. So Dennis said to bend some piano wire, maybe.
Wire.
Is that all you use, piano wire? Because that stuff is not easy to bend. I got some and I was like, holy crap, this stuff is tougher than my wife.
And how thick did you get that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How thick was the piano on it?
0.32. It fits. It's like about the same size as a paper clip. I was wondering if I could use a paper clip.
It's got no spring.
Don't use a paper clip.
Don't use a paper clip.
You want this. You want the
Piano
nature
wire
of the
with
piano wire.
a pair of snot nose pliers, you should be good to go.
Yeah,
with my fingers.
I sort of got it bent, but it's just not the tolerances like the ones you buy. So maybe I just got to keep working on it. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the commercial raceways like MidAmerica or Pacific Slot Car Racing, they sell those things in packs, and they're like 60 cents a piece.
Okay.
And you should not be paying more than 60 cents or so per clip ever. There's no way that it needs to be $6.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
There are Palmer ones, there are Rusket ones, there are Riggin ones. Some of them are a little different, but they shouldn't be. And JK, you should be able to find them quite easily.
Okay.
And if you can't, send me one and I'll make you some.
If that fails, Jeremy, you can always have your wife bend them for you.
Yeah, she probably could.
Listen, if you can't get them, just send me your address. I've got a bunch in the box.
I can get them. It's just I didn't want to pay $6 a piece, and I figured I knew you guys knew something. So the first person I reached out was to Dennis because he's been doing this since the 1920s. So I knew he'd figure this out for me.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding, Dennis.
A stamp is 50 cents. I'll put some in the mail to you. Then you just copy those and make your own.
Yeah.
60 cents.
Whatever.
Put the link.
60 cents, outrageous.
What do you mean? It's 75. No.
I'll send Wayne, if you need some, I'll send them to you. $38. American, that's US.
Insured, fully insured.
Just 100 pairs for that price, then, please.
All right, Henry, you got your hand up.
I have to unmute myself. Let's try to share something, but my internet sucks, so I don't know if it's going to work.
I'll disable your video. I assume you're doing a screen share. Yeah, there we go.
And now I will do the next one.
Nice.
Yeah, this is the photo that has to be. But I'm working on it. because these are from flat. So this is a picture from the internet. Let's try to share something else. How can I scroll between it?
You go all the way to the side. Doesn't it show a button or?
No, there are you all. Everybody's standing on the right side. Oh, here it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I see it. So this has come off the printer.
Nice.
And this is the PLA. So it started. It's a Lolo 160. And it has a lot of supports in it.
Yeah.
I tried about everything because it's the first time I do PLA for bodies and the work. So I tried with the normal paint to get off the ribs, and I tried filler for wood, and I tried filler for sealers. So I did everything on it, and I did all, but this is what I get. Nothing more, nothing less. The biggest pain is the motor, because I talked today to Flat, and they make nice motors, but they are too big because you can't get any electromotor on it under it, and they don't have chassis. So there's a lot of work to do. And this is, I'm going to share another one. This is the Lola. And then we've got the
we're still looking at the red car body.
Okay. Let's have a look at this one that's coming on.
You might have to stop your share and start again. Unless it froze. I'm only seeing the car that you showed earlier.
Okay, stop share.
Yeah.
And share another one.
Yeah.
Share screen again. Yeah, I'm getting it.
That's what he's got there.
Do you see this one?
Yep. Yeah. Number 34.
This is the Healy, so that's just a normal photo. This is what I'm getting off the printer at the moment.
That's pretty good.
And I think this one will do because the motor is small. It has no height in it, and I'm making at the moment a chassis for it, and I hope a box motor can get under the hood. And this is when it came just off before any work on it. And I like the models. They're lightweight.
Definitely different looking.
Yeah, you did that one standing up on its rear, and those are the supports.
Yeah, and this is what you get rid of it.
Yeah.
Stop share. And the last one. So I always do too much because I'm making 3 of them.
They look like great prints. That whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Thank you. This is the Toyota photo. And then I have to do share screen again. Come on, come on, come on. Share. Yeah, here he is. This one is from the internet. Do you see him?
Yep, the Toyota.
Roll that thing over.
This is what I'm working on.
As much of a go-kart as the first Shadows were, isn't it?
This is the motor he made.
Wow.
Did some painting, but as you can see, there will not fit an electric motor under it. So I think I have to redo this because it's much too.
Dremel is your friend.
Sorry?
Get the Dremel out, Henry.
So
Yeah.
that's for sharing from the first three from flat.
You might be able to carve out room for a crown gear and put an inline under it.
Maybe it does, but I always want to try first a sidewinder. But if it's not possible, yeah, it has to. But yeah, they make the cars, they make them, and I don't think they're all in perspective for racing.
Yeah,
it's just a car. And I look at other things because also the motor, it's almost 12 grams, and I don't want a motor for 12 grams. But it's big.
Where are you getting the models from, Henry?
From flat.
From where? Sorry.
Yeah, I think he's called
Vlad.
Flat.
From
Vlad.
Vlad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nimrod. Yeah.
Nimrod. Yeah, the guy on the other week.
And he had about 60 models, so I asked him 3 because I didn't have any experience with it. So I'm gonna try it.
Can you upscale them and get them right before you print them?
You can make them as big as you want.
How wide is this one, the one you're looking at
in
now?
the slicer? I've made this one. All 3 I made about a dimension, but about 62 millimeters.
Oh yeah.
So that's the normal width that we drive over here.
Yeah.
62. So it's almost the maximum.
Yeah.
But there are relative small cars. And now I have to stop share.
Dare anyone say FF050 motors or flat 6 opportunities?
Sorry?
Put a 143rd motor in there.
Depends whether you want to race them or just make them go. But I was thinking perhaps the
Yeah,
FF050.
you know what? Actually, that's a good point. You know, the Carrera Goes, which are 030 motors, that would work if it would go really well.
They're plenty fast.
Yeah, but I don't drive that.
Yeah.
Amount in it. 3D chassis.
Yeah, you're gonna do custom chassis for them?
Yeah, he hasn't had any chassis. I'm building one for one of those 3 for the Repco. I'm building now a chassis. So let's take a look if it's going to work in a sidewinder. But it's all about yeah, it's an experience. There are 2 parts. You can make a car from and you want to do it on the machine on the PLA machine, but it's another thing to drive that car. Yeah, in that perspective, and it has to be good race qualities. That's not always the case, but maybe together we think something out, because they never make chassis. They never did it.
Well, I look forward to seeing the chassis that you designed for it and how well it runs.
Let's hope. Okay, thank you. That's it. Yeah, finger crossed. Sure.
All right, thanks, Henry. Jim, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just something real quick that I forgot to mention. I know I have, and on the chat rooms, they've been giving NSR a lot of grief about the Evo rubber. And that's what we ran last week. Pretty much everybody that I know, we ran the Ultra Grip Evo rubber on the car. Either the compounds changed and they didn't tell us, or we've learned how to work with them. But pretty much everybody was running the Evo rubber.
Were tires just wide open, or?
Yeah, tires were wide open. So, but you can't get the non-Evo rubber anymore. So,
Yeah.
But we've figured
interesting.
out how to make it work. So
That was my that was going to be my next question to you, Jim, because I'm working on some proxy. I'm always working on a proxy car, and I like the idea with the little bubble in the tire. I noticed your car did not have the center bubble in this particular. Could you please explain?
That seems to work better on non-air wheels. I don't know what the reason, with the Evo rubber, the way we're truing it now, we're just truing it and running it out of the box, and it's great. No break-in at all. Well, there's a little break-in, run about 20 laps on the track, but I true it, I polish it with lighter fluid and put it on the track and run it for about 20 minutes, and they're ready to go. So we've either figured something out, or they've changed the compound and they haven't told us, but just doesn't seem to require that break-in that we used to do with the bubble and all that stuff. So these worked fine.
Interesting.
I can't give you a good answer.
And is the Formula One wheel a solid center section wheel or
they're air wheels?
They're air wheels.
Yeah. Like I said, myself and most of the chat rooms were just, NSR, when are you going to change this Evo rubber? It sucks. And we figured out how to make it work. Just doesn't require that tedious oil and oil break-in. Just run them out of the, and again, this is just one track. So
yeah,
you do tend to find that a track rubber's in, and if everyone runs the same rubber, then it all tends to work together. With the amount of racing that was done on those lanes over the past week, the track will have been in the condition it's probably never achieved before.
He cleaned the track the first day, and it took very little time for the track to come right back in. So it just suits it pretty well for some reason. And I think almost everybody was running NSR rubber.
Yeah, I heard on the first day, I tuned in every once in a while, and on the first day I heard him complaining about how the track had just been cleaned and how there's no traction.
Yeah, well, it was okay even when the track had cleaned. It wasn't as good as it was, but it wasn't bad right out of the gate. But it took a little while to get a little rubber in. So you don't be the first one on the track. You wait about 15 people in line and then go out, and it's fine.
And by the time the actual qualifying and racing and stuff happened, everything was good.
Yeah, it's kind of like you come in the morning, the track's dusty. It takes a few laps to run it in just a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's the reason that he was cleaning, is because we get a lot of dust there, and there's been construction in the building because they were building the studio and office, and had to cut through the concrete to put an air conditioner in. So there's been a lot of dust that's not normally there.
Yeah, one other quick thing again about the details that Marco went into. When you get 50 or 60 guys, they're going to qualify all in the same lane, and the track was sitting for 2 hours because we did tech before qualifying. The guy that drew number one, and ironically, the guy that drew number 1 and 2 are from Northern California, and they rode down together in the same car. But the guy that draws number 1 is usually screwed because the track's dusty. And we suggested, and Marco did it. He took a car out there, not his race car, but he took a race car out there and ran about 20 or 30 laps on the qualifying lane right before we started qualifying. So it wasn't just a dusty lane that had been sitting for 2.5 hours. Thinking and taking that suggestion and doing it, it sets this track apart.
That's awesome. And they were still ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
That
actually reminds me of a comment or a thought process that I remember having during the stream. And that was that it seemed to me that the whole of the qualifying day, people turned up for the whole day to run a minute or 2 minutes. What was it?
Well, the track opened, I think it was 8 o'clock or something. I think 8 to 10 was open practice. So you basically got one shot running through the lanes. That was 2 minutes a lane in practice that day. And so that was 8 to 10. 10 to 12:30 or so was tech, and the track was closed. And then qualifying started at 1:30. So there was a break between 10 and 1:30 where nothing was happening, waiting for cars to go through tech. So you literally got, on Saturday, you got 13 minutes on the track, one run through of practice and a 1 minute qualifier.
I thought
that's not a knock. That's just the way there's that many people. It takes that long to do it.
Yeah, it was 52 cars, and it took about an hour and a half to cover on the stream. I thought, wow, there's not very much driving on that track today.
Just
and yet everyone's there for the whole day, and it just seemed that that was one thing. It just seemed that there wasn't so much driving going on.
Well, there's no way around it. I mean, because we had practice in the morning, and then we teched cars, and then we qualify.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
theoretically,
and the other comment that I don't know how it runs in the UK because I've not been to a similar race meeting, but the concept of doing your heat and then getting knocked out of the whole event and not getting to go again on the track was another thing. I'm not sure how that would have sat with a British audience, with a British contingent.
but what's
We
different
tend-
between that and any other race you get to? At some point, you're going to get knocked out.
Well, when you've got semi-finals and a final, then yeah. But I just don't know whether or not the UK run their races in the same way because I'm not actually been to one like it. Because most of the big events that I've done are the ones with the endurance element where all the cars are running for all the time.
I mean, well, the other alternative is to run the heats with move ups. So you qualify, you're sorted in a heat by your qualifying time, and then the very last main, the top two go to the next main, and so on until you get to the final. That's the alternative way to do it.
Or a round robin of 52 drivers.
Well, Greg, you were at the Coral.
Yeah.
That his individual format, I love his format.
Oh, it worked out great.
And so what he does is he has qualifying. The top two drivers go directly to the semis. Everybody else goes in a heat. And when you run the heats, the next 8 drivers, this is a 6-lane track. The next 8 drivers out of all the heats, the top lap getters out of all the qualifying heats go to the semi. So that's 10. The last 2, there's a big round robin called the last chance qualify. So you have 3 chances to make the semi, qualify first and second, be the top 8 in the heats, or the top 2 in the, it would take forever given 50 people, but I do like that format.
Yeah.
We have 3 chances to make the semi, and then you have the semis in the main.
Yeah. And there was a good, I don't know, 25, 30 people at the Coral. So, I mean, that worked. I don't know, things scale up differently when when you go for that many people in a slot.
Yeah, well, we had 9 heats, so you'd have to run 9 heats, and then you're still going to have 9 more heats in the last chance because you only move 8 out.
Yeah.
So you'd have to do that you'd have to do it over 2 days with 50 people.
The other thing was, of course, that the weather was fantastic. Most of us were pitting outside under the easy ups, and so we had this lovely breeze flowing across us, and we just sat and chatted with each other, and we socialized, and we had fun. I mean, that was Saturday. That was the best part of Saturday.
And there was a lot of downtime on Saturday, but like I said, it was fun.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we're all pretty laid back out here anyway, so that was really, really good. And, you get to meet a bunch of guys that you haven't met before, and you get to chat to them all and show cars around, and there was a lot of other stuff going on. People saying, have a look at this that I've just built, or have a look at that I just bought, or whatever. And so there was a lot of that going on too.
And there was new guys there. I mean, Dennis, Rick Lynn?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've raced against Rick for a long
time. Wasn't that his first 30-second scale race?
The first time he's run one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so we had new people.
He's a USRA champion, so he's a excellent driver.
And he's a very courteous driver. We ran together quite a bit, and when I was faster, he would let me go, and then I got ahead of him. He let me go, and I got ahead of him, and I started screwing up basically. And so I, Rick, go back by me. I'm just going to follow you for the next 2 minutes. We'll finish the heat. So yeah, very nice guy, very courteous driver.
He's a very thinking driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he thinks all the time, and absolutely unflappable when he's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be. I mean, that was his first race. He wasn't in it to win it, but he was in the main, and he'll be a force to be reckoned with in the future.
When you guys get a chance to look at the main again, have a look at the times where they're showing the drivers, and have a look at the different driving styles of everybody. Some of the guys who just stand, some who hold their controllers up in front of their chests, others that have the controller down by the side. Watch the fingers. Some of those fingers are quivering. Some of those fingers are moving incredibly slowly for the speed that the cars are going. Also, it's really interesting. There's a bunch of different stuff there.
Yeah, I couldn't help noticing the guy who folds his arm and has his controller underneath his armpit.
Yeah,
that's Cedric. He was in the semis.
Yeah.
And if you watch me, I didn't realize I shake as much as I do.
Wow. I was going to say up and down movement with your controller. That's what I noticed you do that.
I didn't know I did that.
Well, I'll tell you what I noticed on that score, and that is that you and Rick hold your controllers almost identically, even down to where you place your thumb and fingers of your left hand.
But he drives with his middle finger and I drive with my index finger.
Yeah,
But
Jim, it's probably subconscious what you do. It's just anything you do, you do things subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of us move our heads, just move our heads left to right. Others swing the whole of our bodies. Others are dancing left to right and moving back and forth. And you don't see it very often. You can't see it so much on the stream, but if you get up close to the guys, the facial expressions are something. My wife said to me, "Why do you always suck your lip like that?" I said, "I do."
Actually, that stream showed a lot of that. The guys holding the controllers, because I didn't want to say anything, but Jim said it. So with his controller, I was noticing that. And you was noticing other guys, how they had it in there. It's just, you see their faces. The stream was really good to see all that. You could see all that you're talking about, Dennis.
There was one.
Did you notice the tension in some of the drivers as they went out to qualify, and they would throw the car off the slot in the first 1 or 2 laps, and people would be like, "Just breathe, bro. Put a lap down. Put a lap down. Just breathe."
Most people aren't used to doing that, let alone doing it with 50 other guys around watching you.
Watching, that's the thing, isn't it? The occasion is the thing that puts the pressure on, when you know that you're the only person performing, you're the only thing moving in the room.
There was one guy.
Makes a difference.
There's one guy, and I can't remember who it was, but when my car comes on the straightaway, I follow it down the straightaway. There was one guy that when his car came down the straightaway, and at the end of the straightaway, there's a tight turn, he would immediately look down to the others. So he was going, I go like this, and he was going like this. And he'd go down to the end of the straightaway, but he had to pick up his car again, but it worked for him. But it was different technique.
But it was like watching Mutual of Omaha's Slot Car Kingdom.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a comparison of how this stacks up to other large scale racing? What would you compare this to in the past? Or
it was it was an intense competition, but it was a very friendly, intense competition. And I've not seen that at some of the other large 24 scale races. It gets beyond intense.
The one they were doing 9 turns plus a straight in 6.5 seconds. 9 turns in 6.5 seconds. You'd never stop. It was very intense for the driver.
I watched a lot of the live stream, but I just was wondering, for those that compete in other large scale races, how would you, with relations to other even things from the past and the vintage years?
Well, I can tell you, in a formula car, I shake just as much. Nobody can see it.
But the corners in a full scale race are so much further apart, and so it's slow by comparison, isn't it?
In a full size race car?
Yeah. On a full size circuit, you get the opportunity to get the car straight. You go down the straight. You get up.
Yeah, except that there are other 4 open wheel cars around you going about the same speed. Yeah,
all wanting the
it's
same line.
It's like driving to buy milk, man. The other problem is that you're not a 1/32 scale driver, so if you fly out, it's you.
Yeah, self-preservation kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go further on what Jim was saying about the qualifying and people saying, or Wayne saying, breathe, bro, breathe. It was great to listen when new guys or less experienced guys were up. It was the experienced top racers that were doing the coaching. They were sitting behind, most of them were sitting inside, and they were sitting behind these guys. And it didn't matter who it was that was up there. There was always somebody giving some advice, and not saying you must do this and you must do that. Just saying, breathe, try this, try that. That was a good lap. Slow down here, do some lap, let the tires warm up, all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of cooperative and collaborative environment just happened the whole time we were there. It was really great.
Yeah. Oh, one other comment that only needs one line. Mark Nativitad's marshalling.
Oh yeah,
that was great. He was like a sprinter ready to go after the car. He was fast.
That's the only problem. The only problem with that track is those 2 inside turns where you have to sprint in there to get the cars. It's just a fact of life that with that track. But yeah, he's a good turn marshal. He concentrates hard. He watches. He's not like me. I find a spot where nobody comes off, and I turn marshal there, and I do an exceptionally good job.
Jim, I got a question. How many out of the 52 drivers, how many were non-Californians?
Well, there was 4 from Texas. There's Maurizio from Italy. There was a couple, I don't know how many from Arizona. And Dennis, maybe you can think of any others.
Not that I can remember.
Yeah, so maybe about 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's probably 10 at most, I would think.
Yeah, there was, Marco said there were some guys from Pittsburgh entered, but I guess they didn't show up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The country's just so big, isn't it? You can't gather a nation of the, you can't gather a representation of the nation at a single place. You just.
I'll tell you.
I live in the same state, and I'm 385 miles away.
Yeah.
Next year, that entry will be the full 72. I'll tell you that for dead sure, because with the success of this one, there'll be a lot of guys from the Midwest and maybe even the East Coast that'll be there. I think the furthest guy was my buddy Gary, who came. He's an ex-California resident, now a resident in North Carolina, but he flew from North Carolina for the race.
Really? Where in North Carolina is he from?
He's in Hendersonville.
And oh, okay, gotcha.
So close to Asheville, so it's a bit of a distance from you.
Yes, 3,000 miles. I'm from California, so that's why I know.
We need some representation from the Northwest.
Yeah, true.
Are you trying to say something here?
No, I'm not trying. I did.
Yeah.
We
we have nothing against blue and yellow cars. I mean, really, you're quite welcome to have blue and yellow cars.
I'll repaint mine and put blue in with yellow where the white is, and you have a blue and yellow.
I'm sure I would have enjoyed it if I was closer, but yeah, that's. I get enough racing, and I'm not that competitive that I feel the need to travel.
There's always Cloverleaf. They have their thing going on, but was it NSR? I think though.
Yeah, Cloverleaf's
That'd be on our side.
in October, and that's full NSR parts except handout quick slick silicone tires. So that'll be probably quite a good race. Some of the Cloverleaf guys were thinking about coming out, but I think that they were scared off by the rubber tire thing because they have no experience of rubber tires. As it turns out, it would have been pretty simple, bolt on a set of NSR F1s and go. But anyhow, maybe next year that'll be addressed as well.
It really was as simple as that. After all the testing and all the crap, everything we've gone through with tires and compounds, it was buy a pre-mount set of NSRs, chew it, throw it on the car.
Yep. Oh well.
Dennis, you still got your hand up. Was there something that you wanted?
Yeah, I did want to show you guys one little thing here, and that is let's get away from 1/32 scale into 1/24 scale. About 5 years back, a friend of mine in the UK by name George Kimber built me this chassis, and I haven't ever put it together. So the last couple of days now, I've been putting that together, putting a motor and gears and wheels and so on onto it. It's for what they call their Tottenham class, which is a 1/24 scale angle winder class that is similar to what they used to run in the UK back in the 70s, I guess. So I've just finished that. Beautifully built car. What George does once he's built them is he actually covers the brass with clear adhesive tape. So it's like that clear stuff, the shelf liner or something like that. And so they never rust, or they never get a patina on them. They stay the same. This one, as I say, is 5 years old. And then I was doing that and creating a body that will go onto it. So that's what that car is going to look like.
That is one hell of a long nose.
Oh, terribly long. It's a body that was made by, I think, by Better and Classics. And the guide sits right underneath this bump here. So the front of it is just spoiler, nothing else. So it's actually quite a short body, but with a very long nose. But it gave me space to put his sticker on the front. So yeah, just something I'm doing to pass the time.
Looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Are you going to race that somewhere, or are you just building?
I'm gonna drive it at the drive it at the local commercial raceways, but it's not for a class that we run out here. It's just something that I wanted to do so that I can feed back to him that I've finished his car and actually got it on the track and so on.
He's a really entertaining guy to listen to, isn't he?
George? Yeah.
I've never met him, but I've listened to him on Between the Lanes once.
Yeah, he's very entertaining. He's been around slot car racing a long time, and particularly this type of slot car racing, 1/24 scale and 1/32 scale steel cars. And nowadays retro, of course. Yeah, you can listen to George for a long time. Sometimes you have to listen to him for a long time.
We have something in common, perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing. And oh, Ron wants to share his. Sorry, Don wants to share his.
Don's got one.
There you go. That's a different kind of one, though, right?
This was a acquisition that I got recently.
What's underneath it? Oh, a Champion Turboflex. Okay, nice. That was a chassis that was like the mainstay of press steel frame chassis racing for many years. It was an excellent car. It's been superseded now by a lot of lighter stuff, but it was a really good frame.
This is the box that it came in. And in the same deal, I got this to go with it.
Parma Turbo?
Parma Turbo, yeah.
4 ohm, 2 ohm, 4 ohm?
2.5.
2.5, yeah, that's about right.
This is definitely a commercial track car. I can't run it on my track. It draws too much juice, but
just need more juice.
Well, I mean, I could hook that up, but my power base isn't going to handle a 2 amp draw on it. It's just going to fry it.
Yeah, that was one of the things. One of the reasons I did straight analog wiring with a big high amp switch between it is so that I had gotten an old wing car from a friend, and it was not raceable as far as tuning and proper functionality. But I got it to go on my track, on this track here you see behind me, because it's just getting straight unfused power from my pyramid. So it had all the amps it needed, and I drove it around that track. And I did the silicone on the foam trick so that I could get traction, because dry foamy's got no traction on this track, but it was fun to do.
Well, that's cool.
Does it hold the track record then, Greg?
No, because it's still, even with silicones, it's still, I still had to drive it fairly conservatively because it's a 1/32 track. So I barely had room to run it around, let alone sling it around. So,
yeah.
And of course, the wings were functionless because it never got enough speed for them to come into play. But yeah, it's a thing. All right, we got 10 minutes left. Any more slot car topics, or should I hit the stop button now?
I've got one. It's for Jim, I'm afraid, again.
All right, well, you've only got 10 minutes this time.
Do you remember your earwax tool?
Yes.
Did it get much use in the preparation for the Slotted Nationals?
Yes and no. We got 3 handout motors. And what I thought was the worst of the 3, I started to go through a break-in process. It ended up being underwater for about 3 hours. The brushes are perfectly seated, and I used that tool to see that. And so the tool itself was useful, but that motor was slower when I broke it in than after I broke it in. So the motor I ran in the race was right out of the package. It had like an hour of practice on it the day before, and it was right out of the package. No break-in.
So the wrapping didn't cover up enough holes for you to not see. You were still able to see into the motor?
Oh, no, the brushes were wrapped around the comm after 3 hours. But yes, you could see with the tool, you can see in the hole and see exactly how the brush is seated. Okay. And once the brush is seated after 3 hours, the motor got slower. So I said, The tool is in my box because I don't need it if I don't break the motor in, and the tool is useful. But I don't know about Dennis, but I didn't break in my motor at all. The one I ran.
Breaking your motor. So
I
do
didn't break
you
them in
think it's
either,
fully
just put them
broken
in
in
the
now,
car.
fully seated or not?
No, I haven't looked. Yeah, I will probably do that and take a picture of it. And so I can see how far after about an hour and a half of running that it's broken in. But the motor out of the box was fast, and that's the one I ran. And it was fast as anybody's.
Dennis, did you do any break-in?
No, I didn't do any braking. I put the motor in the car and I ran it. I was testing them at home. I actually put all 3 motors that I had, I put onto my little motor tester here before I started, and they were all within 200 RPM of each other at 5 volts. So I just plugged them in a car and ran them. My friend Gary, he spent the whole of last Monday with me, the Monday before the race, because he came out a week early. And we ran hundreds and hundreds of laps on my track. And his motors got a little bit better, or one of them got a little bit better as he ran it. The other one was good from the start. And my motors, because I put in 2 of the motors into 2 different cars and ran them, they were virtually identical all the way through. Because I always had 2 cars while I was there, so that when I was practicing, I could test 2 different sets of tires right against each other all the time. So the cars were identical in setup, and I could test 2 different sets of tires. And I didn't find any difference from one to the other. And really, they were just as fast at the beginning as they were at the end, and maybe a little faster towards the end, but I didn't do any kind of special braking at all.
And racers being racers, if there was an issue or a disparity in motors, that's probably the first thing you'd hear. And I didn't hear anything about motors all week.
Oh, hell yes, they would have been complaining, but there was absolutely no complaint about motors.
And by the way, a friend of mine saw this the other day. I think Electric Dreams has motors on their website. They're selling it actually less than the price of an actual, it's an actual motor, but than the standard MX-16 slotted. So if you want to buy one with a pinion and the wrap on it, I think they have them available on the site cheaper than a regular motor.
Well, we get a set of matched or selected MX-16s from Maurizio, provided to the Le Mans 24 hour. So the teams have the choice of that motor or the flat 6, and the choice tends to depend on whether you're going in GT classes or LMP2 or LMP1. The LMP cars nearly always use the flat 6. There are some exceptions, but nearly all the GT cars run the MX-16. And we have access to 3 of those, or probably 2. I'm not certain off the top of my head. It might be 2 that are handed out to us at the beginning of the race. You actually walk to the table and you point at a pair of motors that are on there. They're all marked, not wrapped like the ones you've got, but they're engraved, and therefore they're identifiable at tech. And we take those back to the bench, and we honestly struggle to find any difference before anything's happened in terms of running them in. And although there is time, we don't do any water dipping because they're going to get run in during the race anyhow. And when they've done, I've got numerical evidence that showed that the cars in the race were no slower in the Sunday part of the race, i.e. hours 20 onward, than they were in the early part of the race. In fact, some teams did their best hour of laps in the 23rd hour. So they can do 24 on, I don't know, 12.5 volts, I think, at a ratio of about 2 to 1, which is way taller than you will have been using. And they stay strong. The lap times remain the same. They do get warm. You know, we've got temperature guns, and we can pull the car off after 5 minutes of practicing and identify a temperature. And as long as it's under a certain number that some of us have got in our heads, then we're happy with it.
But wait, they lose the magnetism. After
They must lose some magnetism, Henry. But I guess they must. Temperature will have done that, and the armature rotating in the magnetic field will do some of that too, perhaps.
Sure.
But the cars don't slow down.
It takes pretty high temperatures for neodymium magnets to lose magnetism.
There are neodymium magnets in there, I don't think, Greg.
They're not?
They're ceramic, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So that's
these were all brand new motors, so they have the optimum magnetism they're ever going to have. So
yeah, when they're new, they're as strong as they'll ever be.
So what was the temperature that you had in your head when you were taking temperatures that would have been too high? What was your limit?
Well, we wanted to see underneath 50 degrees centigrade.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether John even thinks about this or bothers with it or knows anything. He's probably never measured a motor, apart from licking his thumb and sticking it on the underside, because that's John's style. But I've got a temp gun, so we used a temp gun. And yeah, we were happy as long as it was under 50C.
Don, did you guys take temperatures of your cars during the race?
No.
No, you wouldn't do it during the race. When the car's doing laps, you just leave it doing laps. Yeah,
whenever you would have been taking temperatures.
Certain motors at Rockingham, we do run 13.5, 13.8 volts at Rockingham, and you do a 3-minute race, you take your car off, and you do burn your finger. That's 3 minutes, 4 hours. So, after 24 hours, oh look, the chassis. They do get hot. They do sew up. I found, especially at Henley, if you go around and you're having a good run, 10 minutes without an out, you come out, and it's only off the track for a fraction of a second. It gets put in. You get the gas, come out the next corner because it's accelerated a lot faster.
Right, John. That's right, absolutely right. You can have a crash, the car can come back on the track, and suddenly it's faster.
Yeah.
That's what you're explaining? Yeah, I felt that myself. And I've often wondered why. And I think there's potentially 2 reasons. It is either motor cooling a little bit, or the braids have been disturbed. And when you put the car back on the track, the braids have got fresh material on the rail, potentially.
Yeah, it's going to pick up. It's going to get a better flow of juice through the rails.
It could be either, but I have noticed the same thing.
Yeah. As I say, we've never had a problem. We obviously our 2 motors, about 1,000 RPM between ours. One was just the one we used was about 22.6. I think the other one was very low 21 RPM at 12.
So you are measuring these then to choose one before you decide to put it in the car?
Yeah, you've got 2 motors. You buzz them up and see what they spin at, and you tend to put the faster one anyway. That's what you know.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We've had motors we've had to take back because they haven't worked. They are literally.
Actually, now you remind me, we had one throw a wine straight away in practice. We had to take one back for that reason this year.
Yeah, I thought what was a good motor in my Jag, only to find that it wasn't. So we basically took it out and put another one in and gave it to me. The bin was someone just chucked it in the bin. There were a load of cans in it. Well, that's recycled. Was the aluminium. They're normally okay. It's the luck of the draw, isn't it?
All right. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button, and you guys can keep chatting about other things. But everybody else out there, we'll see you next week.